it's suitable, you know, but we certainly won't be allowed to put the forklifts on Central Street. So
No, that's
we're
not,
taking
I'm not asking
forklifts.
about Central Street, I'm asking about the area that's being called a pedestrian walkway.
Yep,
Is it
yes.
more than a pedestrian walkway? That's my question.
Operationally,
If we could.
yes, we would like that, operationally.
It would seem to be a necessity.
No, I understand. My only concern is that if you have potentially some type of a piece of equipment that could have a liquid leak and you're crossing over a wetlands area. These vehicles have hydraulics. That's my question. Was that brought up to DEM at all as a concern?
I
That's an impervious-
absolutely.
That's an impervious surface, right?
Right, that is, I mean, and so what you have essentially is any roadway that is nearby a wetland would be under the same
Right.
auspice. We could have, God forbid, an 18-wheeler break down there that is not even for our building, and that's part of the spill prevention in
No, I understand that, but I guess my question was more that was DEM made aware of that it's not just gonna be pedestrian traffic, it could be a light equipment traffic going through there?
I don't know that we would ever get into that depth with DEM. Once we're putting down impervious surface across a wetland and have that limit of disturbance, I don't know that we got to that granular with them. Or would we get that granular with them? Or would they have the authority to?
Well, I think it's beyond the forklifts. It's what they're carrying. Right? Don't they have the potential to be carrying?
No solutions.
Oh,
There's no liquids in this
Okay.
building.
So, well, not this
No,
building,
no.
but I thought there's stuff coming back from.
Right, but he's talking about hydraulic failures,
No, I know,
not
but I'm just saying, I'm
liquids.
saying what.
None of the material would be liquid,
Oh, okay.
transporting between the
So it's
two.
only metal.
Only
hard
metal
metal.
circuit board, correct.
Okay.
Solids.
Okay. All right.
There's no liquids in this building.
That
No
was
solution
my
processing
concern. All right.
planned.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right.
No, I agree with the concern though, because it was sold as pedestrian access. There may be vehicular traffic, whether it be light or small vehicles going back and forth. So
That's kind of the road I was going down, that if it's allowable for fork trucks, and you made the comment that it's essentially wide enough that if EMS or fire had to get through there, eventually, it's just gonna stop where one person's gonna drive the pickup truck across it to move something, before you know it, it becomes an everyday occurrence. That's what my
Well,
concern
it's
is.
gonna be built strong enough to support fire equipment.
Correct, right, but then,
Yeah.
right, so,
But that's in a completely impermeable cap, right? If this site was 100% arsenic laden, we would cap it with impervious, which is exactly what's proposed, right? That's a suitable cap under any environmental condition. 4 inches of impervious on top of 8 inches of process is a suitable cap. So I would argue you have a more suitable cap here than you may have on some of your roadways. I know for a fact you don't have 4 inches of pavement on some of your roadways, right? So that's a pretty substantial cap, and I think that's what was presented to DEM, is this is going to be a completely impervious area with pavement.
I have a question for Mr. Casali. Tab E, page 11.
Yep.
You mentioned SHGWT, but don't define it. For we novices, could you tell us what the SHWT is and why 8 lines down it doesn't have the same sequence of letters?
I think that's seasonal high groundwater table.
That's what I read into it.
Right.
But for the record, I'd like it to be made public.
So SHGWT is seasonal high groundwater table, meaning the groundwater table at its 100-year high through modeling, through soil modeling. That's what we call not the groundwater table that we encountered, but the seasonal high 100-year groundwater table.
Thank you. I just wanted on the record.
Thanks. Anything else from the board? Or do you need to open a public hearing? Okay, I'll look for a motion to open a public hearing.
So,
Motion to open a public hearing, do I have a second?
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is open at 7:53. Mr. Cruel.
So, Mr. Chairman, we received a letter from one of the neighbors of Mr. Christian Resendez. He's asked that I read this into the record for the board. To the North Smithfield Planning Board and MST, as a lifelong resident of this town, and with my family having resided on Central Street for the last 75 years, I'm deeply disappointed in the conduct of my town and its handling of this matter over the past 15 years. With that said, I do not have the power to stop MST, and I have accepted that they will be building their new warehouse. So, as their neighbor, I have some important questions that I believe this planning board and the town must address if they have not already done so. One, my first point is visual. We do not want this new building to be an eyesore to those who live in the neighborhood, especially for those who are forced to look at it across the street every day. The appearance of MST gives of their current building, they present a professional exterior with quality landscaping. And how will this new building improve the look of Central Street? Will the impact of the landscaping and architecture effectively mask or hide industrial activities to the best of MST's ability? Two, I am concerned about the increase in noise. The vacuum light sound that is heard coming off the main building every working day will likely be louder once the trees come down. That plus increased traffic of trucks arriving and unloading may be loud. What will MST do to keep this amount of noise down at the new warehouse building and the current building combined? Three, I am deeply concerned about the environmental issues concerning the current MST building and the warehouse. Last month's chemical leak of silver cyanide is a huge worry, especially with the new warehouse being surrounded on three sides by wetlands. No one wants to see fire trucks accompanied by hazmat trucks show up on Central Street. Knowing this was an accident, what assurance will MST provide to those families who live in the homes that abut their property that A, such a scenario will not happen again, and that B, the company has everything in place to deal with such emergencies? Will MST be storing chemicals as dangerous as silver cyanide in a new warehouse? It is our understanding that this fire was contained. What happens if this happens again? We're not so lucky. What will MST do then? Promising it will not happen again is not good enough, and clear plan of action must be demanded by the town. Speaking of the town, North Smithfield must do its due diligence in being kept aware of environmental regulations that MST does and does not meet. The fall of 2022, research at DEM showed at least 3 air and soil pollution violations for which MST was fined. The town did not have these records in their files, nor was anyone in the town administration aware at that time. When this information was sent to the zoning board as evidence on 2 occasions, the materials were somehow never properly submitted as evidence. This was infuriating to learn about as an abutter of MST. So now 3 years later, I ask you, the planning board, and the town of North Smithfield, what will you do to stay on top of MST's environmental practices in order to ensure its neighbors that all is being done to keep them safe? And with that question, I would like to make a suggestion that MST file a report with the town at least once a year in good practice. Does the town and/or planning board have the power to make this happen? Despite the thoughts I expressed at the top of this letter, I hope for the best. A year or 2 from now, I hope that I can look back with all of this and say that I was wrong and that the concerns I have raised were easily addressed and remedied, and that I feel safe and healthy in this environment, and that Central Street looks, feels, and sounds better than I could have imagined. And so my question stands: what will MST do to connect with its neighbors in good faith to stop the fresh? Here's to hoping MST can convince me in their practices going forward. Thank you, Christian Resendez.
Question for the manager here. You maintain MSDS sheets,
We do.
and does the fire department check on occasion to make sure that
We invite them in. There is a requirement yearly that we file reports that go to the fire departments and also to emergency management
thank you.
for all of anything we have in that building. Quantities.
And there will be no liquids, no this
There is no
cyanide in this
solution
new building?
sampling cyanides of any sort or anything like that in this building.
Thank you.
Those reports are done annually?
I believe
to the fire department?
biannually, some are biannually, some are annually. There's quite a few.
Okay. I mean, we have plenty of precedent of requiring, whether it's DEM report or stuff like that, being filed with the town, because we have other situations where the town was the last one to know, you know, and that shouldn't be the case. So, and so along those lines, I was gonna ask about, you know, obviously you recognize, you're very conscious of the delicate nature of what you're building and its proximity with the wetlands. So what kind of DEM follow-up testing will be done, say, once construction is complete, once it's operational? Because that's really what you need to do is, you know, whether it's an annual test, my personal preference would be that the first year of operation, maybe it's quarterly, so you can nip any problems in the bud and then move forward on an annual basis once everything is under control. So what is the plan for, you know, whether it's soil testing, water testing, et cetera?
Well, I don't think there really was a plan. There's no outside activities, so, you know, I don't, as far as contaminations and.
Right, there is no file with the Office of Waste Management. This isn't like the Department of Health that requires quarterly updates on a public well. DEM is in that Office of Waste Management is enforcement driven. In terms of our freshwater wetlands permit, we as the designer of records have to send in an affidavit saying that it was built in substantial conformance with the construction docs, so everything they approved on the plan. We have an operation and maintenance plan that's with you. That'll be recorded in the land evidence records. But that's the operation and maintenance of the drainage appurtenances. I'm sure that we have internal O&M processes, but nothing, there's no mechanism for it to go to DEM or no one there that's able to review that.
Mr. Krillo, maybe you can help refresh on them, but you've recently had some projects where we required this kind of DEM testing that may have been due to the nature of what was going on in those sites versus this one.
So-
I'd just
so-
like some clarification.
Primarily related to drainage and maintenance plan, and that there's supposed to be annual cleaning or whatever the
There
plan
is.
calls for. Those, the company that cleans it files a report.
Yes.
Sometimes we ask that those reports be forwarded to the DPW or the building official or both annually once they're filed, so that we have a knowledge and understanding that the maintenance plan has been followed.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable requirement.
That's standard protocol, we
Again,
agree
it's-
with that.
Because, again, why the town isn't notified is sort of mind-boggling to me when this happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And if DPW is the right place, that's fine. I mean, it's,
Chair, if I may, also part of the potential concerns that are being raised are due to the existing building that is a heavy industrial use, and with the application that is before the board today and that the public is commenting upon, that is going to be a light industrial use, so they would not be seeing the same levels of concerns or of actions.
well, I think the key in that regard is the fact that there's no solutions on that. That's where the real problem happens. So, what about, no, so you're not disassembling, you know, because I know there were concerns, like when you mentioned printed circuit boards and stuff like that. You know, taking those apart, grinding them up and all that can produce very harmful chemicals, right? That's why we can't recycle electronics here in town. You have to bring it to a special facility that knows how to, you know,
Right.
properly dispose of that. What about those?
So there are certain things on circuit boards that need to be removed before we process them, such as any type of beryllium components and mercury blade switches. So those things are all removed before we get them.
Oh, before the
Triage, yeah, before
Okay.
we get them. Because we're reclamation, we're really precious metals reclaimers.
Right.
So those are removed. So the only other constituents in shredded circuit boards would be basically the dust, which is dust collected. We collect it. It's valuable. We don't want to lose it. Everything's contained.
So
it
is that
stays there.
happening in the new building or the old building or both?
The new building is what we're talking about. The old building is happening in the old building too, but
Because we did talk, when we were talking about noise, you talked about the dust collecting and the vacuums and this and that, you said that.
all interior, yes, nothing exterior.
Oh, okay.
Nothing going to the outside.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One for additional question that I have. With the new water line that's coming in, there's going to be new fire suppression for the new building?
Yes.
Okay, so then the.
In the old building,
And the old building. So
including a
so
hydrant
you-
on the street.
Okay, so then the concern about, a fire burning, the fire department getting here quickly to address the fire should already be preempted a little bit more with a fire suppression system that's going to be installed in both buildings.
That's right, so you'll not only have a sprinkler system that will go off immediately, part of the battalion that'll respond to the fire will hook up to that new hydrant.
Yep.
That engine truck will pressurize through the FVC, that sprinkler system, so that there's really now two ways. There's that immediate water source, but then we also now have a mechanism that the engine truck isn't drawing off a cistern or just with the water that it comes with.
Yep.
Not to belabor the point, but go ahead.
Real quick, just to be clear though, we're bringing the water to the old building to be able to put in a fire system. That's not part of the soon as
Right, we
plan.
don't have any
The new
water.
building will have.
Yeah.
It's being built with. Okay, sorry.
Just one last thing on the dust collecting and all that stuff. So you collect all this dust, how is it disposed of?
It's all processed. It has value as well.
Oh, it does.
It has
okay.
metals. in it.
Okay. So it leaves, so everything leaves as finished?
As a commodity, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there is real incentive to capture all of that dust.
Absolutely.
Sure. It's cool.
There's no waste generated from this operation. Trash, cardboard, things like that.
Well, the PCB boards themselves, plastic.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move and close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Have a
Second.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed at 8:05.
I have one more comment too, just based on Mr. Resendez's letter. Have you met with the adjacent abutters to talk about site plan, landscaping? Because it might be a good idea just to discuss with them and have a good understanding of, okay, the landscape plan that you presented to us tonight, it's fine for us, but we're not living across the street from it. So it might be in good faith just to meet with them to say, hey, this is what our plan is, this is what the building's gonna look like, this is the plantings that we're proposing, here's the architectural stone block that we're proposing. Would you like to see more arborvitae's put in front of this or something? Just to extend that good faith neighbor, so then that way, you're not getting calls, we're not getting calls, and we're all kind of on the, moving forward together.
And I think Mr. Resendez made a nice point in saying that the current building is very professionally presented, wants to make sure that you maintain that, which I think is something you said.
That's
early on.
been directly out of the owner's mouth, that this is going to be nice and
Yeah.
you can expect that. Jeff, this has been a little bit of acrimonious with the neighbors. The last
Yeah.
time we saw them was at the
Yeah.
zoning hearing.
Yep.
No,
We spent 2 years going to court, unfortunately overturning that. This has cost millions and millions of dollars now to build this building today than in 2022. I assure you the landscaping has not changed since we saw those neighbors.
Okay.
Nor has the building, with the exception of that stone.
although we've added to it this evening. We've improved it. this evening.
Right, and we want to be as complimentary as possible, but I can't tie this up for months and months.
Well,
Getting the neighbors'
right,
approval, it's
no, no,
summertime, we gotta get building this
Right,
building.
no, I'm not expecting you to say, oh, we're gonna keep, not put shovels in the ground. but
Yeah.
Just more of an education and a discussion with them to bring them up to speed of what's gonna be there, and just in good faith to show them, we understand you don't wanna be looking at a metal building all day, and just being respectful and bringing them up to speed, because I know
And frankly,
Christian wasn't able to be here, and I think you got a couple other houses that will be looking
Yeah.
across the way. It's not a stipulation that I'm putting forth, it's just a recommendation that I might put out there for you.
Well, and, we still have final, right? So I'm saying, is it possible to put together something that's more like I'll call it the artist's rendition, which is, elevations are nice, but they're very technical drawings.
We-
Artist's rendition, just of that side, from Central Street on.
We did speak about putting, just like any site would have, this is what it's gonna
Here's what
look
it's gonna
like.
look like.
Just for that reason, for the whole public,
Well, not only
you
that,
know.
if you're doing it that way, it's something to be proud of.
Right.
I mean, it'll end up hanging in your office.
And it'll answer a lot of
Well,
questions
that's,
if they see it.
yeah, I mean, that's
So
fine.
we did plan on having a rendering at the site,
I think if you could have
large.
that,
Yeah, a site
And that-
rendering,
and even if that could be sent out electronic, this is what it's gonna look like. And, the planning board and the planning office can facilitate that, maybe get some feedback, and you don't have to have a separate meeting or something like that.
yeah, respectfully, we hope tonight's the last time we're before you. We're
Okay.
asking for final administrative.
Right.
Again, it's been,
And I ask that you get that artist rendition done prior to that. Okay? Is that possible?
prior to
Present it.
approval.
No, prior to the final,
It's a final.
not prior to, not like we're gonna
But
continue.
just help me, Mr. Chairman, again, where does this go? We send this to them,
Just for information.
Just for
and then
information.
where does it go?
No, just for
Okay,
information.
we send it to them certified mail, it's over?
No,
No,
You can give it to me.
We can give it a month and it's over?
I get to send it,
Oh, yeah.
because I've got
Consider it
multiple.
as a courtesy,
Yeah,
but I mean, I personally like to see it myself, but I'm comfortable with the changes